Ayo, welcome back to Art with Ashleigh Monet. That would be me. You saw the thumbnail, you know what you're doing. The time has officially come to test the waters on something new, a new series on my channel. I call it True Crime and Doodle Time. I love true crime and I love doodling. Doodle, doodle, doodle. So let's put them together and have a good time today, but also bring it down to a more serious note. We're going to be talking about some pretty horrible things today, and I do not want to make light of them at all. Today, I'm going to tell you guys the story about Diane Downs. Diane Downs, let's just say she was a monster, like plain and simple. Think Casey Anthony, but before Casey Anthony was a thing. Diane Downs blazed the trail for crappy moms like Casey Anthony. All right, so portraits are kind of my thing. We're going to do a Diane portrait in this video. Let's just say one of the things Diane Downs is most notorious for is how promiscuous she was. And I'm kind of like, okay, girl. She must have had something special we don't know about. But irrelevant. Let's get to the story. Let me set the tone for you. The scene. It's May 19th, 1983, Springfield, Oregon. A woman frantically pulls into the emergency room drop-off at Mackenzie Willamette Hospital. She jumps out of her vehicle and starts shouting, "Someone just shot my kids!" Medical staff rush to pull 3 young children out of the car. The car is soaked in blood. Cheryl, the middle child, was only 7 years old. She had sustained 2 gunshots to the back, and sadly, there was nothing that hospital staff could do for her. She was pronounced dead on arrival. The oldest child, Christy, she was only 8 years old. She had been shot in the chest and was in dire condition. The surgeon on call that night said that she was the closest he's ever seen somebody being to death without actually dying. And the youngest child, little Danny, he was only 3 years old. He'd been shot in the back and he was also in critical condition. But then here's the mother of the children, Diane. She's also shot. She's demanding medical attention, but her wound, a completely non-life-threatening gunshot to her left arm. Which, by the way, she had already wrapped in a towel prior to arriving at the hospital. So as doctors are desperately working to save these 2 remaining children, well, the police show up and they immediately want to get a statement from Diane about what happened, how something so horrible could happen to these children. She tells police that she was driving down a deserted country road in the middle of the night with her kids asleep in the car, just taking the scenic route down a road she's never been before, when around 10 o'clock a, quote, bushy-haired stranger, end quote, flagged her down in the road. "Hey, lady, stop." So she stops the car to help. Middle of the night, deserted road, kids sleeping in the car, strange man, and she stops the car. I'm sorry, as a mother, no. I'm driving past you, and as soon as I get to a phone, I will call the police and be like, "Hey, somebody on this road I think needs some help." But that's just me. It was also the 80s, so kind of a different time. Anyways, she stops the car. Doesn't roll down the window. No, she takes the keys out of the ignition and steps out of the car. And she asks the guy, "What do you want?" To which he responds, "I want your car." And her response to that, "You gotta be kidding." And apparently just at this response, the man got so upset, he shoots Diane in the left arm, pushes her aside, leans into the car, and shoots all 3 children, sleeping children. Because, every carjacker will happily drive away in a car with 3 dead bodies in it. As if he's not a man with a gun who just shot their mother, like he couldn't just point the gun at them and be like, "Get out of the car." But don't worry, you guys, because quick thinking Diane, she pretends to throw her keys into the bushes that were kind of next to the road, like, "Hey, you want them? Go get them." And apparently this carjacker is basically a golden retriever and goes after the fake key throw. And while he's distracted, she jumps in the car and speeds off down the road, driving, quote, "like a lunatic," end quote, as fast as she possibly could. Obviously with the goal to get the kids to the hospital ASAP and save their lives. Now, if this story sounds like a steaming pile of that's because it is. Diane Downs was a liar. She lied and lied and lied and lied. She lied about the lies that she lied about. But soon enough, the truth about what happened that night would come to light. So Diane Downs was born Elizabeth Diane Frederickson on August 7th, 1955 making her a Leo. She was born in Phoenix, Arizona to her parents Willadine and Wesley Fredrickson. Now, Wesley, the dad, was a postal worker. Willadine, the mom, stayed home during the day, but she did pick up little side jobs at night just to make ends meet. Money was tight for them. Now, it was said that her parents were Christian fundamentalists, and they were very strict in raising Diane and her 4 siblings. Yet she was one of 5. She had 3 brothers and a sister. You know, those fundamentalists, they believe in having as many children as God will give you. So I can imagine Diane had to have at least been a little bit attention-starved growing up. She even has gone to say that in her childhood, she felt like her parents were much more into each other than any of the children, especially her. That dad had very tight control over mom, but also mom took up all of dad's time. You will see a very common theme throughout Diane's adulthood is that she is very prone to this attention-seeking behavior. Anyways, around 14 when she hit high school is when she did what we all do and kind of rebelled. She started wearing makeup, which was obviously completely forbidden in her strict house. And this is where she got into boys. Oh, the boys. Diane was boy crazy, to say the least. So it was in high school that she met Steve Downs, who would go on to be her future husband. When they first started dating, her parents did not approve of him at all, but that honestly, she said, just added to the appeal of him. In her words, her parents' relationship was so messed up that if the guy she was with was something they didn't like, then it had to have been a good thing. I don't know, but it sounds like Steve and Diane had a very tumultuous relationship that was constantly on and off. After high school, they did split for a short amount of time so that Diane could go off to college. She enrolled at Pacific Coast Baptist College in Orange, California, but she was only there for a year because she got busted having sex in the chapel with a boy. And therefore, she was expelled for promiscuous behavior. I tell you, that girl was boy crazy. So she moves back in with her parents, which she said was absolutely miserable. So in 1973, at age 18, she married Steve. She said she did not marry him for love, but literally just to get out of her parents' house. He was her escape. And at this point, Steve had joined the Navy after graduating high school. Within a year of them being married, Diane was pregnant with their first child, Christy. Now, this was very significant because Diane discovered that she loved being pregnant. I think she finally got all of that positive attention that she had been seeking her whole life. People treat you different when you're pregnant. They kind of treat you like royalty, and she very much loved that. Christy was born in 1974, and it was after the first child was born that Diane realized she didn't love being a mother nearly as much as she loved being pregnant. People all around her would report that she was not a very good mother, she was not very attentive, and rather than be there for her kid, one of the first things she does after Christy is born is decide to enlist in the Navy. Just like Steve, she's like, I'm out of here. Have fun with that kid. However, she wasn't gone for very long. She didn't even get to complete her training before coming back. And she had nothing better to do with her time than get pregnant again. This time with Cheryl, and Cheryl was born in 1976. And once that happened, kind of hit the fan because Diane was like, this is way too much. She felt like she was in a loveless marriage. Things were not good between her and Steve. I couldn't find concrete evidence of this. She has claimed that he was abusive, but no other sources confirmed it. It's possible. Either way, she's not happy being married to Steve. Again, now she's got 2 daughters and these kids are very neglected. Neighbors have reported that the girls would say they were afraid of their mom. She would often leave them with the neighbors or with her parents, or honestly, sometimes just alone if she wanted to be out of the house. They weren't well dressed. They weren't well fed, which again, they have 2 parents. You can't put that all on Diane. Doesn't sound like Steve was really pulling his weight either. But either way, situation's hard enough with 2 kids, but Diane gets pregnant again. My gosh, this woman. It's called birth control, hun. I will say this time around, she kind of reflects on her current situation, decides that it is not a good time to have another child, and she chooses to have an abortion. Now, knowing what we know about Diane, that was probably the right decision for her to make. Nonetheless, she is racked with guilt over this, okay? She decides that she wants to give this aborted soul a new vessel to come into the world. So she wants to get pregnant again. Well, as it turned out, Steve decided, no more kids, and he went and got a vasectomy. Does Diane let that stop her? No. What does she do? Well, she sleeps with someone else, of course. Yeah, at the time she was 24, she slept with a 19-year-old just to get pregnant. Literally thought of this guy as a sperm donor. But she got pregnant, and in 1979, the little boy was born. Now, they named him Stephen Jr., but his name was Stephen Daniel Downs, so they just started calling him Danny. And mind you, this is messy because Stephen is not the father. This 19-year-old kid is. And that biological father was still involved. Apparently, Diane used him frequently as like a babysitter. But then Steve stepped up and claimed him as his son. So, but it didn't last very long. I mean, Diane didn't become a better mother. The relationship didn't improve. So Steve and Diane divorced in 1980 after 7 years of marriage. Now, at this point, Diane is a single mom. She's got 3 kids who she cares poorly for. She needs money. And what is she good at? Well, she knows she's good at getting pregnant, but she doesn't want to be a mom. So she thinks, okay, perfect. I will become a surrogate, which I guess, that adds up. The maths on that one. So in 1982, she delivers a baby girl for another couple, despite, here's the crazy thing, they did a psychological exam on her and she failed. Apparently she showed signs of psychosis, and yet she was still paired with this couple to be a surrogate. I don't know how the system works, but that's sketchy. But she successfully delivers this little girl and is paid $10,000 for her troubles. Now that did set her up for a little bit, but she needed steady income. So she becomes a postal worker, just like her dad. And oh, the tales. Apparently once she started working at the post office, that was like a feeding ground for her. She just got around the whole place kind of hooking up with everybody. Now, it was said that she even took a liking to married men. I did find a clip, though, of her kind of addressing this, promiscuity claim. You gotta watch this.
In 2 years' time, I had 10 separate lovers. 2 years. That's not very many. And less than half of them were married.
Well, there you go. Less than half were married, guys. And only 10 lovers in 2 years. Not gonna lie, that's pretty close to my all-time body count. But, whatever. We don't want to slut shame here. If you want to be promiscuous, that is all fine and dandy. It just seems like a recurring theme is Diane kind of uses sex to get something she wants. Also, why married? To just avoid married men. That being said, it does take 2 to tango, so any married men that slept with Diane, shame. What are you gonna do? Just say no? Yeah, that's exactly what you're gonna do. You're married. Naughty boys. Anyways, one of the gems that she met working at the post office was Robert Knickerbocker. She lovingly referred to him as Nick, so we'll call him Nick moving forward. Knickerbocker. Anyways, Nick had Diane under a spell. This guy was serving up something special because she was obsessed with him. She fell head over heels for this guy. She wrote him love letters constantly. She got his name tattooed on her. She was like, this is my man. Although there was one problem. He was married. Yep, he was one of the married ones. Somebody else's man. But Diane didn't care. In the investigation, they found her diary and uncovered all of these entries obsessing about Nick. She was planning their future together. She talked a lot about getting his wife out of the way. I mean, he was her endgame. And I have been scouring the internet and could not find in my research the legitimacy of the relationship on Nick's end. Did he feel the same way? Because it seems overwhelmingly Nick was kind of just using her for a good time and he really valued his marriage, apart from cheating, but wanted to stay with his wife forever. No plans to actually commit to Diane. The biggest thing was that Nick was emphatic that he did not want children. He did not want to be a father to Diane's kids or to his own for that matter. He had a vasectomy when he was really young just because he knew he never wanted to be a dad. So I don't know, maybe he really did care for her. Maybe he really would have left his wife to be with her if it weren't for the kids and they were his deal breaker. It's possible, but that is absolutely what Diane thought. The kids were the problem. The kids were what was standing in the way. In her diary, she actually had an entry talking about her dreams of starting up a surrogacy agency of her own and becoming super rich and buying a big mansion where the kids could be on one side and her and Nick could be on the other so that he would never have to interact with them. There you go. Problem solved. I mean, Diane, This bitch is Delulu. Anyways, shockingly enough, this mansion fantasy never came to fruition. So Diane's still pressuring him to leave his wife, and Knick is like, it's not gonna happen. So Diane gets kind of huffy and decides to move from Arizona up to Oregon because that's where her parents are. And she fully expected that like this idea of losing her would awaken something in Knick and he would follow her. Well, he never did. In fact, as soon as she arrived, he called and he's like, we're done. It's over. I love my wife. I'm staying with my wife, which good job, Knick. Shouldn't have started the affair in the first place. But of course, this sent Diane absolutely spiraling. Knick said she was exhibiting a ton of stalker behavior, calling constantly, sending letters that he would return to her and she'd still just keep sending more letters. She was threatening his wife, all of the things. He's just wanting her to go away, and in her head, it's all because of the kids. Which brings us back to the fateful day of May 19th, 1983. So Diane decides, for no apparent reason, that she just wants to have this like really special day with her kids. She takes them and drives out to the country where she has a friend who like has a farm with horses. So she took the kids to see the horses and ride them. Apparently it was a magical time and they had so much fun together. Then they decide to drive home. And according to Diane, it was very common for them to just take the scenic route, take the back roads. But this particular road she had never been on before. It's dark, it's the middle of the night, the kids fall asleep. And here's something that just like messes with me. Is during the entire drive, she had the Duran Duran tape Hungry Like the Wolf playing on loop the whole time. I'm after you. It's a good song, but in context, really freaking creepy. But that's what's playing when this alleged attack with the bushy-haired stranger happens. And as we know, afterwards, she speeds off like a lunatic to the hospital. At the hospital, almost immediately, Diane starts giving herself away. She's very concerned with her wound. She's not asking anything about the kids' status, how they're doing, red flag. When the doctors inform her that Cheryl is dead, no reaction, not a tear, nothing. Which I'm sorry, even if you're in shock, I don't think any sane mother could not have emotion in a moment where you find out that your child is dead. She starts saying some really weird things, like when the doctor told her that Danny took a bullet to the spine, she says, "You mean it missed his heart?" I mean, unless you're the person pulling the trigger and aiming at the heart, why would you be surprised that he wasn't shot in the heart? She ended up telling police, "Oh wow, this really spoiled my vacation." Told the doctor that it ruined her new car, getting blood all over it. And it said she was flirting with police. God dang, Diane, like, keep it in your pants. There's a time and a place, and at the hospital while your kids are fighting for their life, yeah, not the time, not the place. Luckily, both kids do pull through. They come out of surgery. As I said, Danny was struck in the spine and was paralyzed from the waist down. Christy had a stroke and was unable to speak. She lost her speech and lost movement of an arm. Now, they were optimistic that she would recover from that. It would just take a lot of time. However, when Diane entered Christy's room to check on her, Christy's vitals just skyrocketed. Her heart rate was through the roof. This girl was terrified of the fact that her mother was in the same room as her. And right now, doctors are getting real freaking suspicious with that. And rather than ease anybody's suspicions, what does Diane say? "Oh, I think she's brain dead. Let's go ahead and pull the plug." Pull the plug. Pull the plug. The doctor was emphatic, like, no, we're not doing that. She's gonna pull through this. In fact, the doctor was so concerned about the calls that Diane was making, he and another doctor petitioned the court to become the legal guardians of the children. And the court granted that. Diane lost control of her kids like that. She was forbidden contact with the children, and their father Steve was only allowed visitation. Meanwhile, police are going to work investigating, and as they are, the evidence is not lining up with Diane's terrible story. The blood spatter in the car, not where it should be, if her story is to be believed. They uncover this diary, which just has high motive written all over it. This bushy-haired stranger, total dead end. They did like a composite sketch, circulated it around, dead end. Nobody has seen the bushy-haired stranger. Not to mention the logic of it all is just not there. Like, no mom is gonna get out of the car. No guy is gonna try and steal a car after he's already shot the kids. No guy is gonna shoot the kids in the first place when he could just tell him to get out of the car. And the fact that she barely had an injury, like, she's the biggest threat to him, not the children. So why not give a fatal shot to her? And as if it wasn't already looking bad enough for Diane, what happens then? Oh, she starts changing the story. Yeah. Oh, and not like little tweaks. I mean, you're coming up with a whole nother ridiculous story. At one point, she changes it to say that this bushy-haired stranger, no, now he knew her. He called her name. And then it was two men, and both of them were wearing ski masks. And then it became a person that she knew exactly who it was, and she was going to find him herself. I mean, girl, stop lying. Just stop lying. I don't know if she genuinely thought that people were going to believe any of these stories, or if it's just like that, I'm backed into a corner caught in a lie, I'm just going to lie my way out of it, and you think that's going to work. I don't know. Anyways, the evidence wasn't looking good for her. There was actually a report of somebody that was on the very same road that she was on, and they got stuck behind her. And you know how she said she was driving like a lunatic, just speeding frantically to get to the hospital? Well, this car reported that she was going so slow that his speedometer wouldn't even register the speed they were going. Why would you be driving that slow if you're in such a rush to get your kids to the hospital and get them care? Let's be real. She shot them kids and was driving super slow, hoping that they'd be dead by the time they got to the hospital. And I think that is just so stupid that she sees a car come up behind her. Like, why wouldn't you at least hit the gas then? Like, you look suspicious as hell. It's a good thing she didn't, because, again, evidence used to bring the truth to light. But gosh, if you're gonna be a criminal, at least be smart about it. Also, the towel bandage. I told you when she arrived at the hospital, her arm was wrapped up in a towel already. Well, investigators kind of recreated the fold of the towel based on the blood stains, and it was folded into a perfect triangle, not a sloppy one. Perfect, neat folds. Now, if you're in a life and death battle and flying towards the hospital, how are you having the time to make this nice, neat little folded towel to wrap around your own arm? It would look messy. It would be a mess unless it was prepared ahead of time. Or made right after the shootings and you just took your time doing it, because again, you're not trying to get these kids to the hospital right away. A lot of people did give Diane crap over the fact that she used the towel on herself at all. Like, why are you treating your wound when it's not life-threatening? Why aren't you helping your kids that are bleeding out? And she used the whole, like, airline, secure your mask before securing that of a child. She was like, well, if I bled out, none of us would have made it. Which, whatever, fine. We'll give her the benefit of the doubt on that one. But the towel stitch is suspicious. It's very telling. Also, the kids were shot with a .22 caliber handgun. They found bullet casings at the scenes, but they were never able to recover the murder weapon. Now, Diane told police, I don't have a .22 handgun. Nope, don't have one. Well, it came out both Steve and Knick were able to testify that she did in fact have a .22 Ruger, that she had pulled on both of them at one point in her life. So Diane gets mad and she whips out a gun. But yeah, she had a gun that matched the caliber of the murder weapon and withheld that from police. And this is the weirdest for me, and I had to scour the internet to find out if this was true, because there is actually a book based on the Diane Downs story that was then turned into a miniseries called Small Sacrifices starring Farrah Fawcett, which they did Diane a favor casting that girl. Anyways, in that, they talked about this little unicorn statue that Diane had with the 3 children's names engraved on it, saying, I love you from mom, dated less than a week before they were murdered. And I was like, is that real? Yes. I dug and found it. It was freaking real. She had a freaking memorial statue for them. She says it was just supposed to be a nice gift. It's like, oh, why'd you put the date on there? The names of the kids? I love you, mom. Like, that is weird. She literally had something made to memorialize them before murdering them. You're being so obvious right now. Now, all that is enough to convince me, but I guess I'm easily swayed toward, like, she's guilty, she's guilty. Overall, that's a pretty weak case in the court of law. It's all circumstantial. They don't have the murder weapon. They don't have a confession. And the one eyewitness that is old enough to testify to what happened to her, Christy, she can't freaking talk. So basically, rather than risk taking it to trial and having Diane get acquitted, prosecution waited. They waited months waiting for Christy to recover so that they can get her testimony. But at this time, Diane's not really getting away with much because the public view of her has shifted. You see, when the shooting first happened, everybody was on Team Diane. They were like, that poor mother, to go through something so horrible. We have to find this bushy-haired man. What kind of monster would do this to 3 kids? But as the case was covered in the media more, and accounts from people who knew her saying she wasn't a good mom, she neglected these kids, kind of started circulating, people were like, huh, okay, I'm paying attention, but the worst came from her public remarks, her public behavior. Diane was literally giving interviews to anybody that would have her. Anybody that wanted to hear her story, she would sit down and do an interview because she loves the attention. It's all about me, and I have a story to tell you. I truly think that she was motivated by the attention. I don't think she was trying to garner sympathy, because you would not believe some of the outlandish stuff she said and did. Look at this.
I'm throwing the keys, okay? I'm throwing the keys. Like that. I got in the car. I just hit my cast.
And God, do what's best. You know, if they gotta die, let them die, but don't let them suffer.
Everybody says you sure were lucky. Well, I don't feel very lucky. I couldn't tie my damn shoes for about 2 months. I don't think I was very lucky. I think my kids were lucky. If I had shot my own children, would I not have done a good job of it? Why would I have taken my kids to the hospital? Wouldn't I have made sure they were dead and then cried crocodile tears?
Ah, the good old "if I had done it, I would have done it better" excuse. That's very OJ of you, Diane. But it wasn't long before the jig was finally up. Investigators finally had hard evidence. While searching Diane's home, they found ammunition there. Now, these bullets were not the same bullets that were found at the crime scene. However, they had extractor marks on them. Extractor marks that matched the extractor marks on the ammunition found at the crime scene, which means both came out of the same firearm. That's as close of a connection as you can get to finding the weapon itself. But also, Christy was recovered and had confessed it was her mom who shot her, and she wanted to testify. Bing, bang, boom, Diane is finally arrested. But Diane was not done shaking the world up, because it was during her trial that it was announced she was pregnant again. Apparently, she just found a suitable man with appealing genes on her mail route, and the girl's good at getting pregnant, and she did. I hate Diane for pulling this move, but also, again, it takes two to tango. What kind of guy would sleep with her? It wasn't like he didn't know who she was. She was all over the news, and she had already begun being framed as a suspect. Will guys just stick it in anything? Ugh, makes me sick. It is suspected that she did this literally just to gain sympathy from the jury. Like, nobody's gonna send me to prison forever. I'm pregnant. What about the baby? But when asked point blank why she got pregnant, this is what she had to say. Oh my gosh.
You can't replace children, but you can replace the effect that they give you. And that's gone. They took it from me. But children are so easy to conceive.
No words. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? So, I mean, that's kind of our why, because I could. They took those kids from me, but kids are so easy to conceive. I'll just make another one. God, she's gross. Anyways, in 1984, that's when the trial begins. And believe me when I say her courtroom behavior is no different from her out of the court behavior. It was noted that she was smiling, joking, having fun the whole time. In fact, when evidence was brought into court, the Hungry Like the Wolf Duran Duran tape, they played it for the courtroom, and she was jamming to it in the courtroom. This is the song that her 3 children were shot to. If she is to be believed, a horrible man attacked her and her children in the middle of the night, shot them in cold blood, and this was the song that was playing the whole time. Why would you be jamming? That song would be like a trigger for me, right? A reminder of the worst day of my life, you would think. No. She's a freaking monster. But the prosecution presented their case. It was a good case with just the evidence. But Christy being so brave and testifying against her mother at the age of 10, like, that was the nail in the coffin. How do you dispute that? Well, let's just say the defense presented no defense. It was the weakest defense I've ever heard. Basically, they tried to completely discount Christy's testimony by saying, you know, the prosecutor was visiting her while she was recovering. The doctors were visiting her. The therapists were, and they were all colluding against Diane, putting these ideas into her head of who had shot her. So her testimony can't be trusted. She's been coerced. Okay. Kids are impressionable, so let's take that. Let's give them the full 100% benefit of the doubt and completely omit Christy's testimony. All of that other evidence. And how did they dispute it? They didn't. They literally just said that the prosecution had rushed to finger Diane as the person responsible and didn't consider any other options. That was their defense. And when discussing Diane's demeanor, Her behavior, the god-awful things she says, well, they just rolled over on her childhood. Yes, they said that she had a very traumatic childhood with a very abusive home. In fact, they dropped the bomb that her father, Wesley, had sexually molested her most of her life. I told you guys, she was just like Casey Anthony. Remember, Casey pulled that too. In the middle of court, we're gonna say, Dad sexually abused me. First time anybody's ever hearing of it. It is a bombshell for the whole courtroom. Now, Diane did go on later to recant this. She said it was all a lie. It never happened. For some reason, I'm a little inclined to believe the story. I mean, Diane is a pathological liar. Nothing she says can be trusted. However, in this case, I kind of don't know. Like, Diane is crazy. We can agree. And just from what I've seen, most of the times, okay, there are some exceptions, but most of the time, crazy comes from trauma. Some sort of trauma in your childhood. And according to reports, Diane had none. This male attention-seeking behavior that she has, that can totally be indicative of sexual abuse at the hands of a close male. But what's weirdest to me is her father's behavior. So at the start of the investigation, he even said that he thought his daughter was guilty. There's a clip of it.
I made the comment, it looks to me like Diane did it because the children have been shot in the chest and Diane has only been shot in the arm.
I mean, yeah, we're all thinking it. But then suddenly he does a complete about face. All of a sudden, his daughter is totally innocent. He's one of the biggest advocates for her innocence. In fact, he put out a $50,000 reward for any information that led to Diane being released from prison. That is a very big jump to make, especially after your child goes in court and accuses you of molesting her if you've never done it. Maybe that is the most extreme case of unconditional love ever. I love my kids to death. But if there was evidence that showed that one of them shot my grandbabies and then in court they throw me under the bus and say that I sexually assaulted them when I didn't, like, have fun in prison. I'm not in your corner at that point. How dare you? So I don't know. This is almost looking a little bit like guilty conscience to me, but that could just be me. Again, Diane's a liar. So we'll never know. We'll never know. The point is, prosecution put on a really strong case. Defense really had a very weak, if any, defense. It was a wrap for Diane. Although I will say, it took the jury, I think it was 36 hours to deliberate on this. What are we deliberating? Again, maybe I am very easily convinced of somebody's guilt. The circumstantial evidence alone would have been enough for me, but then you put Christy on the stand and she straight up says, my mom shot me. I mean, what is there to discuss? 36 hours or not, they did find Diane guilty. Hallelujah. She was found guilty of 1 count of murder, 2 counts of attempted murder, and 2 counts of assault. She was sentenced to life plus 50 years with a 25-year minimum before she's eligible for parole. Now, shortly after her conviction, her 4th child, the one she's pregnant with now, was in fact born in prison. The baby was immediately taken away and adopted by 2 loving parents. Now, the story should end there, but it doesn't. This is Diane Downs we're talking about. And in 1987, just 3 years into her sentence, she escaped prison. Yes, she escaped the Oregon Women's Correctional Center by scaling a 12-foot razor wire fence. Say what you will about Diane, but that takes some sort of athleticism that I would never be capable of. And honestly, the prison guards probably weren't expecting. Or who knows, maybe she worked her little seduction magic on a guard and they looked the other way while she did it. Who's to say? Anyways, she got out, but she was only on the run for 10 days before she was reapprehended. Turns out she was staying with the husband of a fellow cellmate. And once they brought her in, what do you know? She's pregnant. No, she wasn't pregnant again, thank goodness. Oh my gosh. Can you imagine though? I'm kind of shocked she wasn't. But she was reapprehended, brought in, and they added 5 years to her sentence for that. She was also transferred to a maximum security prison over in New Jersey, but then was later transferred over to California. And right now, she's in the Central California Women's Facility in Chowchilla, California. Now, she has already been reviewed for parole twice, in 2010 and 2020, and both times denied, shut down. Thank you very much, justice system, doing your job. I mean, they're not trying to let her out because she's not trying to tell a story any different than what she already has. It seems likely that she will die in prison. She completely maintains her innocence and she will make excuses for everything she did, every lie she came up with. She just keeps piling it on. So you know what, Di? Keep doing that. Keep doing that and stay locked up forever, okay? It's funny though, in my research, I actually kind of fell down this rabbit hole because there is a whole website dedicated to Diane Downs' innocence. It's like moderated by her family, and they also have a Facebook group moderated by her family just proclaiming her innocence. And oh my gosh, it is the most ridiculous thing ever. They're saying something along the lines of like, she went to a drug dealer's house and there was a police officer there. So in order to protect the police officer's reputation, they pinned this crime on her so she would be imprisoned and unable to share the truth. It's so stupid. It's so stupid. However, the story does have a happy ending, relatively speaking. Stephen Downs did decide that it was too much work to take on 2 children with special needs as a single father, so he relinquished his parenting rights. And Danny and Christy were both formally adopted by the prosecutor of the case. This guy, you know, definitely brought the work home with him, and he felt so much for these kids and fought to put the person that damaged them behind bars and then provided a loving home for them with his wife. And I think that that is just so beautiful. I got like chills when I heard that. For all the evil that is in this world, like Diane Downs, there are people like Fred Hughey, the prosecutor, who took in these kids. God bless them. So now the kids are grown, obviously. They've led very private lives, so we don't know much about them, but we do know that both went on to college and graduated. Apparently, Danny is very, very computer savvy, and Christy went on to get married and have 2 children, a boy and a girl, and the girl she named Cheryl in honor of her sister. Tears. I love that. Now, all too often in stories like these, the killer is sensationalized, and unfortunately the names of the victims go unremembered. It's not right, but it happens. So I want to take this moment to just remember the victims. Cheryl Lynn Downs was only 7 years old when her own mother killed her in cold blood. Her life was cut far too short. The world will never know what she was capable of, what she could have been, what her dreams were. An innocent life will never be fully realized. And I'm sure she is so greatly missed by everyone who knew her. Obviously her sister, naming her daughter after her, like, that says something. Her sister, Christy Ann Downs, was only 8 years old when her mother attempted to end her life. She fought bravely and she survived, but not without trauma. She suffered a stroke, and while she did learn to speak again, which is amazing that your brain can just teach itself to use the other side and learn to talk, she does still have a permanent speech disability and limited motion of one of her arms as a result of what her mother did to her. And little Stephen Danny Downs, he was only 3 years old when his mother attempted to end his life. He was shot in the spine and he will never, ever walk again. Like the struggles this boy is going to endure for the rest of his life as a result of his injuries. It's just unthinkable. But there's even a 4th victim. Rebecca Babcock, the child that was born in prison and later adopted. She had a life that she described as picture perfect until she learned the identity of her birth mother. After finding out, she completely spiraled. She dropped out of school, she started doing drugs, she became a pregnant teen, just all of the things. She tried to connect with Diane in jail and was terrified at the letters Diane would send her. She realized she was up to no good and she cut contact. Since then, she's been trying to repair her life. But to think even just having this like tangential relationship with Diane has had such a profound negative effect on her. From the bottom of my heart, I wish only the best for these surviving children. I hope they and their families find peace and whatever trauma Diane Downs put in their life becomes a distant memory. And of course, I do hope Diane rots in prison for the rest of her rotten little life. She destroyed everything she touched, damaged all of her children, and for what? For a man. She was willing to sacrifice her children because a guy she fell in love with, a married man, didn't want to be a dad. These are the things that I can't wrap my head around. As a mother, like our job, our primal instinct is to protect the life of our children. So when a woman not only neglects that responsibility, but goes the opposite way and inflicts harm on her kids, like, I don't get it. There is a special place in hell for you. That's all I can say. Just no, no, no. I don't even want to look at her stupid face. Let's defile the Doodle. And because she's a shameful excuse for a human, let's put her in the book of shame. Yeah, I made this book just for this series. If we do more stories, all of the drawings of these garbage humans will wind up in here. Diane Downs' murderous mother. Shame, shame, shame! Well, I hope you guys liked hanging out with me today. Hearing this crazy story. I did choose this one first because I remember being really little, and this was the first true crime story that kind of had an effect on me that I was able to understand. I remember it so vividly, and I was just so baffled because all I knew was my mommy loved me. She was a good mom and she would never hurt me. And I assumed everybody's mom was that way. It was a wild awakening to find out that the world could have true evil like that in it. But I want to hear your guys' thoughts on this case in the comments. Do you think she's innocent? Do you? Do you really? What about the dad? What do you guys think about that? Let me know. Let me know your opinion. Oh, and any suggestions you have for other stories that I could maybe cover. Future episodes, should we do this again? My advice for the day? Don't be like Diane. Don't do anything that might have you finding yourself in the book of shame. Oh, and an announcement. My shop, artwithash.com, is officially live for the autumn launch. I got lots of new fun, spooky little designs, so go ahead and hop on over there. Also, let me give a shout out to all the people that have joined me on my More Monet memberships on my Buy Me Coffee page. My members pay a small monthly fee and unlock a ton of bonus content. Little perks like shop discounts and more. And we do have new gold tier. That's the top tier members. So extra special thank you to Patty and CJ Wolf. You guys rock. I'll link that info below if you'd like to support me there. Or of course, there's always the 100% free way to support me, which is just giving this video a big thumbs up, which will help more people find it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I had a ton of fun. And until next time, goodbye.